The topic is manifestation, but the real topic is you, and for you having permission. Well, that cluster didn't show up, so we'll spot them when they come in. I want to open this by setting an energy a little bit. So the first thing I'd like to invite you to do is you may want to close your eyes and just let yourself draw in a long, deep breath till your lungs are full and let that air flow out again. And as you're ready for another breath, let it be a long, deep breath. And this time, imagine that air flowing out through your body as if your body were layers of silk or fabric. And with each breath, let the air flow in and let it flow out through your body, feeling your body open and expand. And in your imagination, I'd like you to imagine reaching down to the center of this planet Earth and stirring that warm, rich, dense energy there at the center of the planet. And then curl that imaginary hand into a cup and use that cupped hand now to pull a streamer of energy from the center of the earth right up through the earth beneath you, a surge right up through the earth beneath you. It's just energy passing through energy. And draw it right up through the earth beneath you, connecting it into your body just in front of your tailbone. That's your first chakra. And let yourself imagine that you can feel that warmth, the same warmth at the center of the planet and right down there in your pelvic cradle at your first chakra between your sits bones. And now pull that surge of energy, focusing there at your first chakra. Draw that same surge of earth energy deep inside your body, just in front of your spine. Draw that same surge of earth energy up through, right up your body, through your abdomen, through your chest, through your neck, through your head, on up out the top of your head, and all the way up and into what I'll call source. Just running it right on up and into what I'll call source, a big energy cloud overhead, letting that energy flow from the center of the earth right up through the earth beneath you, up and into that energy cloud, geysering, fountaining that energy in the energy cloud above you. And as you increase that flow of energy, willfully increase that flow of energy up that beam so that it's flooding from the center of the earth right up through that channel, up through the middle of you, out at the top of your head, and geysering up into that overhead energy cloud I call source. So you are uplifting, transmuting physical level energy from earth core to source. And as you increase that energy, you may even feel a sense of pressure inside of you. Just relax against that pressure and allow that beam of energy through the center of you to create a glow, letting that glow shine out through you and right on out through everything around you: floors, chairs, walls, ceilings, people, baby ducks, baby rhinos, illuminated phoenix birds, whatever you got in your surroundings. Let it just shine right out through you and right out through everything and even everyone around you, allowing yourself your whole energy field. And willfully increase the flow up that beam from earth core to source, make it more so it makes that energy field even larger, allowing it to expand that ball of energy that's centered in the middle of you, allowing it to expand that ball of energy to let it radiate right out through you and right out through everyone and everything around you. And allowing that beam to continue to flow, allowing that beam to continue to lengthen your spine and extend your light. Go ahead now and give your body a big breath. And just bring your focus right on back into the room. Just continuing to allow that live beam, as we call it, the Life Insights vertical energy beam, just continuing to allow that live beam to flow right up from the center of the earth, right up through your body, up and into that overhead cloud source, and allowing it to let you glow, let your light radiate out through you and out through everything around you. A lot of us that grow up sensitive get impacted by the energy broadcasts from all the people around us. It pushes us around, it shoves us around. And so, growing up sensitive and not wanting to be intrusive like that on everybody around us, we get polite with our energy. We take our energy into polite mode. And in that polite mode, we actually either hold it in, hold our energy field compressed into us. We decrease our energy flow to make our energy field smaller, or at most, we'll take our energy field out, but we'll either shape it to and stop it when we reach somebody else, or we'll just shape it and encapsulate the people around us so that we are we and they are they, and we are not overlapping them because it seems polite to us because their energy is so intense to us. All of us have an energetic broadcast that radiates out from inside of us. All of us have an energetic broadcast that radiates out from inside of us. In the 60s, we would refer to that as somebody's vibe. I can feel their vibe in the room, or I don't like their vibe, or whatever. That's that same stuff. We're all a moving human body antenna broadcasting and radiating our energy out through us and out into our surroundings. But we have an option as to how much we let it radiate. We have an option as to how much we hold it in and containerize ourselves. We have an option as to how much of our light we let shine. And then we come to the really funny part. You could think of us as having, and this is just figurative, but you could think of us as having two different magnetic presences. Don't get too lost into this. We're just using it as an analogy. But you could think of us as having two different magnetic presences where we have a core essence that is who we really are. But that core essence gets wrapped around by the tangled energies that are our lessons for the lifetime. So we've got a core essence that is who we really are. And that core essence is wrapped around by our lessons, or as we experience them, our stuff in the way. You've experienced this with other people when you've been able to see with your kid or your friend or your partner or your parent or your teacher, when you've been able to see that they could be so much more, but that they're running into their own resistances. And in fact, I've watched people create entire romantic relationships based on the one person's full intention that they're going to be able to draw out the who they really are in that other person past their stuff in the way. And they keep being surprised when they get whacked by the stuff in the way because they really expected to be interacting with the who they really are of that other person. I know that was densely packed, but we'll move on. We'll just take it apart. You can figure it out. Okay. I've seen relationships based on somebody being so connected to the who they really are part of another person that their whole focus is in that who they really are part, while all their friends are seeing the who they're able to be, who they're being part of that person. So, the one that's wildly in love is if you could just see the part of them I see, and their friends who are watching the stuff in the way are going, honey, if you would just pay attention to what we see, right? Maybe y'all have seen this. So we have a who we really are part, and it's wrapped around by these tangles of energy that are the lessons, the curriculum that we took on, that's part of a much greater project. Whole nother workshop there. Our who we really are part radiates magnetically into our world, but so does the energy tangles of our stuff in the way radiate magnetically into our world. Now, the fun part is when we're really thriving, when we let ourselves light up with our energy, when we're allowing ourselves to be thriving, to be filled with our sense of love and aliveness, we're lighting up that who we really are part. Now, that doesn't turn down the broadcast of the stuff in the way any more than, oh, this is a horrible, annoying analogy. Yeah, we'll skip that annoying analogy. It doesn't turn down the broadcast of the stuff in the way. I'm stuck with it. I'm trying to fight this one. I don't like it. Give me a second to argue with guidance. Let's see if they can't give me a different picture. So when we increase our flow of aliveness, our vibrancy, we're increasing the amount of light radiating from our who we really are part. While it doesn't turn down the magnetic of our stuff in the way, which is still magnetizing. It's energy flowing. It's got energy tangles. It's magnetizing. It doesn't turn it down so much as it drops it into the background so that we get more of the who we really are broadcast compared to the tangles magnetizing. Now, flipped in the other direction, when we get all humble or all sad or all unsure of ourselves or all unhappy in our heart, and when we dial it down, our aliveness, we're decreasing the amount of light that's radiating. We're decreasing the amount of magnetism from the who we really are part of us. But we're not decreasing the amount of magnetism from the tangles and the stuff in the way. So when I'm dialed and lit up, I am magnetizing, let's just for fun, let's say I'm magnetizing on a scale of 10, that aligned part of me, that essence part of me, that truth of me in the universe. And my stuff in the way is still magnetizing it, let's say a 3. So I'm magnetizing at a 10 from the aligned part of me, the lit up part of me, the core of me, the part of me that is in alignment with and a fragment of the original wholeness that we call God. If that's magnetizing on a 10, while my stuff in the way is magnetizing on a 3, then I'm seeing a whole lot more of the synchronicity and the coincidences in my life lining up with my core essence, my aligned part, my truest essence, myself. On the other hand, if I get humble or sad or mad at the world or unsure of myself, or if I pull myself back and dial myself down because I'm not sure who am I to be broadcasting my light out into my surroundings, I'm just me and I don't approve of me today, and all those other good reasons we come up with for dialing down our inner flow of aliveness, well, then all of a sudden my who I really am part is broadcasting at a 2, my are magnetizing. That's the word I want to use. That who I really am part is magnetizing at a 2, while my stuff in the way is still magnetizing at a 3. And I'm going to see that I'm magnetizing a whole lot more stuff showing up in my world that has to do with my stuff in the way, my issues, my lessons, than I am seeing that I'm magnetizing stuff that matches to my core essence, my truth, my highest self, my highest perspective. That was dense, I know. It'll sort. We've got some time to chat, so we'll get it sorted. And I do have the typed chat is open on my screen. I won't be reading it all the time, but if there's something that you want to ask a question specifically about for me to clarify something I said, not a question about God, the universe, and everything, but if you're wanting me to clarify something I said or repeat something I said, the shorter you type it, the easier it is for me to read it, and I'll be glad to respond. Like if you just type repeat that, I will. Okay. And you don't have to. I mean, I'm not begging for interaction. I'm just letting you know that you can dive in and play here. To my mind, the first step of awakening who we really are and what we are is realizing we have permission, that we have permission to be a magnetic effect on everything around us. And then the second step is realizing that we always have been having a magnetic effect on everything around us. Once we can recognize that that's what we are, is a huge energetic magnetic presence, and that we have will and free will and choice about which wolf we're feeding, that we have will and free will and choice about which part of us we're dialing up the energy in, that we have will, free choice, and ability to be dialing up the energy flow in the core essence of us that is aligned with truth, then the next step of the game is stepping forward beyond our psychological limitations. It's stepping forward beyond the places where we limit ourselves inside, those imprinting that we've taken along the way, and stepping full into the radiant magneticness that we are. I really want to emphasize right here, and I'll be coming back to it, the process of choosing which aspect of us is going to be the predominant magnet, is not a process of becoming perfect. It's not a process of no longer having any stuff, any weirdnesses going on. It's not a process of having reached a state of nirvanic perfection. Everybody, deep breath, please, if you would, let it out again. It's actually just a process of giving ourselves permission and allowing ourselves to recognize that we are that bright light being that we are. Marianne Williamson, borrowing from her quote about our deepest fear, says, "Your playing small does not serve the world." But we might ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, or fabulous? And her response is, who are we not to be? Who are we to dial down? I'm off of the quote now, but who are we to dial down the amount of light that we allow to shine in the world? I know, not very interesting to watch, but it's a practice that I like to do in this place. I had the good fortune that we have a question over here that I'm going to respond to. It just it'll sound like I'm going a long way around. I had the good fortune that one point in time when the Dalai Lama was going to be in Northern California, a friend of mine was able to score tickets and was generous enough to offer one of them to me, and I went. Sitting there in Shoreline with a couple other close friends of the Dalai Lama. I don't know how many thousand people were at Shoreline that day, but a lot. So sitting there with a group of 1,000 some people, hanging out, got there early, everything, hanging out with my friends, and then I realized that the Dalai Lama was arriving. To my sense of him, I probably felt his presence from about a quarter of a mile away, maybe a little further, something like that. I don't know because I couldn't do the science of like, okay, I can feel him now. Where is he? I just had to guess at how far away he felt. And roughly the amount of time between that and when he showed up would have fit for him to have been about a half a mile down the road at whatever they call Shoreline these days. And so I knew we were in his presence. We were in the energetic presence and we were in the energetic magnetism of that human being from quite some fair distance. So that by the time he was in the Shoreline arena, we were well immersed inside that human being's energetic field, and it was uplifting. I can tell you that I don't remember much of what he said, but I do remember that I was high for a couple of days after that. I was in an elevated energetic state for days after that, just from the amount of presence that he carries and radiates. I love to recognize that on my own scale, I do a similar thing and I intentionally build up my energy and presence. And that's a part of what I do as my daily practice. It's certainly what I do when I do a presentation in a workshop. My intent is that whether you listen to me or mute it to me, to be consciously present in the workshop or even consciously present in a recording of the workshop, that you're sitting in an energetic field that will be aligning and elevating your energetic flow. Now, the flip side of that is I just recently, well, a year ago last March, um, a gallery owner that I'm acquainted with, having seen some of my photography, gave me an invitation to show in her gallery in San Francisco. And I had such a tremendous flow of awe, gee, shucks, I don't know. Yeah, I'd really like to do that, but what if people don't think my pictures are photography? What if they just think they're just snapshots and that they take snap? I had all of this dreck running through my emotional system and my mind that went together with delivering photos to her, that went together with knowing she was hanging the show, and then went together with being there the opening night of the show, the official opening night of the show for a reception. And sort of like, what if nobody shows up? What if people show up and they don't like it? What if they don't see it? Well, the fun is I just did my second photography show at a gallery in Castro Valley. We just took it down this past weekend. And I had all of that going on again of, oh, gee, shucks, who am I to have made maybe people only put it, maybe they only think it's nifty because I made big print of these things. Maybe it's not. And so the sweet part was that I did a reception there as well. And I got then to listen to people talking to each other, but even talking to me about the things that my photography brought out for them. And the more they did that, the more I opened up and relaxed into it's okay for me to stand here and claim myself as an artist that does photography. We get educated with a whole lot of who am I to? Who am I to be well lit up? Who am I to light my light up? If we start learning about our energy, we have a whole lot of, um, I'm not perfect yet, so I don't dare let my energy shine vivid because I would hate to be magnetizing the world into a squirrely shape based on the fact that I have imperfections. But there's a whole lot of, again, if we grow up empathic, in my world, I look at things as being, I look at our experience of our intuition being clairvoyant, meaning that we get our intuition, it translates visually, clairaudient, we get our intuition, it translates into audio signatures, whatever that might be. I think of clairsentient as we get our intuitive, it translates into body sensation and simple knowingness. And then I don't know the proper words for clairsmellient and clairtastient, but I know I've had those experiences. Um, and it's just that's how that intuitive information translates. I think clairtastient's becoming my favorite. Like we'll call it clairgustient, something like that, to where I'll get interesting flavors like, wow, that's a flavor of a teacher yelling at you until you felt really small and you wish you could hide in the back corner of the room. But I get it like a flavor, like tasting wines. It's fun. It cracks me up. Depends on who I'm working with, how it all shows up. But those of us that grew up with a body sensory response as being part of our intuitive palette, those of us that grew up with a body sensory response as part of our intuitive palette, we really got buffeted around by all of the stuff that was going on in the people around us. I know for myself, some rooms are okay, but locking me in a room with 30 other kids whose brains didn't want to be sitting still sometimes was a very overloading experience. In fact, putting me in a whole room full of adults who have stuff going on, sometimes that'll throw me into an overload state. And I just need some space away from you guys. Although now I use practices to let my energy flow right through them so that whatever they've got going on can flow through me without hitting me like a big tidal wave of overload. But in an odd way, the more intuitive we are, the more we're sensitive to what's going on in the other people around us. And the more we're sensitive to what's being broadcast in the people around us, the less we want to be overloading them with a big wave of us. And we learn to dial it down, thinking that that's what everybody does. And the fact that we're around a whole lot of people that don't light themselves up, that really do collapse inside themselves, really gives us the notion in the education that everybody's dialing down their energy. That's the polite thing to do. So that's what I should do because I wouldn't want to be bragging. I wouldn't want to be overfilled with myself. I wouldn't want to be too impressed with myself. All of this other dreck that we get loaded with when we're a kid. Second phase. Then there's the places where sometimes when we're reasonably well lit up, things happen. And our mind, the conscious mind, not the intuitive awareness, but the conscious mind, the upsurface mind, will go, oh, well, that happened because we were lit up. That happened because we were shiny. They picked on us because we were shiny. They noticed us because we were shiny. If we can avoid being noticed, then we don't get picked on. We don't get targeted. We don't get this, and this. So we get all of these wonderful bits of feedback along the way. Don't be too full of yourself. Don't be too proud of yourself. Don't be too boastful, blah, blah, blah. We get all of this wonderful education along the way that imprints us like fingers into modeling clay. and it imprints us and shifts our energy flow and our presence and our internal permission. Jumping back to the question of humility, I experienced the Dalai Lama as a high level, if not ultimate, experience of humility. He was gentle, he was quiet, he was peaceful, he presented what he was presenting. His schedule had just changed, and it turned out that the MC of the show I attended was part of the staff on a place the Dalai Lama was scheduled to go to the next day, and his schedule changed. He wasn't headed there. And so what I heard was the MC was regularly zinging the Dalai Lama throughout the entire event. Well, had you been able to come to the place we set all up for you, you would have seen these pictures, you would have heard these kids choir, etc. And I watched the Dalai Lama humbly accept that this man's feelings were hurt, and they were hurt by something that had to do with him, and he was there. I think that humility is not getting tiny. I think humility is becoming as fully present as we can possibly reach. And at the same time, being who we are and recognizing our world and being fully a part of and fully accountable for our own world. But to me, oddly enough, humility is the process of stepping all the way into myself so that I can drop off any patterning that had me try to make up for what I'm not, any patterning that had me try to overcompensate by trying to be more than I am, that had me trying to bluster or be bold or push it forward or win the point or whatever it might be, and simply being willing to be present in my own company and with my own self, even with a body that burps in the middle of a live presentation, to just be comfortable with me in my body, in myself. To me, that's humility because I'm not pushing anything. But the next piece that I'll describe is that the energy process I'm talking about, where my practice is that beam of energy from the core of the earth up through me to source, increasing the flow up that beam, which to me feels like speeding it up until I glow, and increasing that flow to glow through everything around me, even if the thing around me happens to be a person. Out in public, it's sort of fun because it makes babies stare at me, and I get a kick out of being stared at by babies. So I like that. It's like, and they just watch me. It's very fun. I like it a lot. But out in public, it also allows me to have a place where I can witness the world being shifted by my existence and my presence, which sounds kind of cocky, except that mostly it doesn't show up for me as cocky. It just shows up for me as like, wow, that was cool. I like that. What I'm doing right now, I want to do more of what I'm doing right now because I like that result. We get imprinted. It's interesting. I just finished a book that's they show the authors as being Oprah Winfrey and Bruce, whose last name I keep dropping out, not Lipton, but some other Bruce. And I keep losing his name. It starts with a P. But if you look up the book, What Happened to You, which was funny. When I first saw the title, I read it kind of snarky. I read it like someone might say to somebody else, it was a mess of what happened to you? But it really is what happened to you, looking at the imprints earlier in life and how they play out in our behavior patterns and in the life we get to live. I'm giggling with it because it's a brand new discovery with Oprah, and it's a lot of years of research for Bruce to find and validate this. And it's the same stuff I've been working with for a while. As Dottie put it, since before some of you were born, which is a startling number. Since way back in the late 1900s. There we go. That the things that happen leave an imprint. Now, because I have this quirky talent where when I'm perceiving more so than seeing, I perceive things in patterns. And so I perceive energy in patterns, and I perceive my clients as energy patterns when I'm working with them, or even in a room full of people, or this is a virtual room full of people, I'm watching energy patterns. And so what caught my attention about that is that we all have an energetic field around us, like spider webs, and sort of it's almost spherical, it's more egg shaped. But that when I'm working with people, sometimes I'll be able to see where that energy sphere has gotten dented by various events in their history. So it's no longer spherical, there's a dent in it. Now, everything is energy, and every non-thing is energy. Everything is energy, physical stuff, quantum physics agrees, but every non-thing, like your emotional flow, your mental flow, is also energy. We are the net result, from my perception, we are the net result of how the energy that flows through us, how it's shaped by our energetic patterns. Um, the difference between an amazing $1 million violin by an amazing violin builder and a $300 beginner's violin by a factory is that how the violin is shaped changes the resonance of the sound from the strings, right? So the shape of how the vibrations that come from the strings, how those resonate in the violin body, changes the sound that we hear, in strings and so forth. Just details, but you get it. Well, how our energy patterns are shaped changes the energy flows and gives us a different result. When we have an imprint or a dent in our energy field, that changes our energy flow and it shapes how we're experiencing life. It shapes what we magnetize to us in life. It definitely shapes what shows up in our world, but it also shapes our psychological thought patterns of how willing we are to be seen. See, there's a wonderful quote from Carl Jung, not Steve Young, but Carl Jung. Uh, and what Jung said in one of his quotes that I've seen was, I feel that the parts of us that we most seek to keep hidden away are actually the parts of us that we most have in common with the others around us. And if you've ever had the experience in any kind of a really profoundly connected relationship where you found it really, really hard to cop to something, you know, you were mad. No, I wasn't. Yes, you were. No, I wasn't. Yes, you were. And we just don't want to cop to it. Sorry for that example if that one doesn't work, but work on your own. Where we just don't want to cop to it, or we don't want to confess we were scared, or we don't want to confess we were hesitant, or we don't want to confess we were overloaded, where we're shielding to keep our inner self hidden because we don't approve of it, and because we assume everybody else would don't approve of it too. But if you've ever had the experience where you made a breakthrough in that shielding and you actually copped to who you really were. You actually copped to the embarrassing or nonsensical or nonlinear emotional response that you had. You actually copped to that. There's a feeling of release when we do that because we've dropped a part of the shielding and we've let ourselves be seen. I did some study with a guy named Stan Dale, and I borrow a quote from him, so I'll credit it. And his quote was the word intimacy. When Stan Dale would use the word intimacy, he referred to it as into me you see, letting you in. So one of the places where we keep ourselves small, where we keep our energy dialed down dimmed, where we hold our energy way close inside ourselves, where we try to keep ourselves invisible, where we try to make sure we're not intruding, where we try to make sure that we're not an impact. Well, heck, even the place that won't let us take the last slice of bread just in case somebody else wanted it, even though nobody's grabbed it for minutes now. Okay, those of you that have that one. It's the joy of having friends. I have some very dear friends that I frequently visit and stay with that live down in LA, and she's an amazing cook. And one night she stopped herself and her husband. She made dinner and we were going to serve our own plate. And she and her husband both stopped and stood in the corner of the kitchen and stared at me. And I'm like, what? What did I do? She said, you always stall. You go find something else to do. You hesitate at the back of the room. You never serve yourself first. Not tonight, kiddo. Tonight, You're taking your serving first, then we'll serve ourselves. To which I thought, no, I don't do that. And then I started to notice I really did. I would go wash my hands again. I would go find something else I needed because I wanted to make sure that I didn't take more food for my share than what they were going to take for their share, blah, 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 blah. Busted cold and still hard for me to overcome. I will always tend toward that, I notice. It's these little places that we might otherwise psychologically to keep hidden because I actually tried to argue it. No, 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 I don't. You just go ahead and serve yourself. You cooked it, serve yourself. Nope, we're not doing it. Oh my God, you're right. I do have a resistance to this. And now I'm going to walk through it. We will dial our habit of keeping our energy low or contained or shrunk, belittled. We will dial our habit of keeping our energy belittled in order to shield and guard those quirky little parts of our nature that we think might get us unchosen, that we think might get us disapproved of, that we think might drop away people that otherwise would be okay with us. As Dottie mentioned, I do a radio show. It broadcasts at 6 in the morning, Mondays and Wednesday mornings, but mostly people listen to it up on the website online where we archive it anymore. But used to be that the schedule was different, and that made it possible for me to go in and do the show absolutely live from the studio at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning it was. And so one morning I'm headed into San Francisco and I noticed I'm grumpy. I'm grumpy with the way people are on BART. I'm grumpy with how people are standing in the way. I'm grumpy with the homeless people on the sidewalk at that hour that are sort of trying to get in my way to make me have to like donate money to them. I get to the station and I'm trying to be really careful to not be grumpy out loud with the board operator, the engineer, Carlos. But I'm sure it leaked out a little bit. And then it's time and we go up on the air and I'm busy trying to hide that I'm grumpy. And then I can hear it. I can hear it coming out that it's obvious right there in how I'm phrasing what I'm talking about because I just ad lib the shows. They're whatever's flowing. And I can hear it and it's grumpy. And I'm busted in my own brain. And so I copped to it. And there was all kinds of parts of me that went, uh-oh, if I cop to this, everybody's going to lose any respect they had for me. Everybody's going to lose any regard they have for me as a teacher. Everybody's going to know I'm not the perfect teacher. And I did that. There was nothing to do but cop to it. And I said, all right, I got to cop to it. I'm grumpy. Now, coincidentally, carrying forward previous story, coincidentally, when I copped to it, I also said, I don't know if people at the level of the Dalai Lama still get grumpy, but I still do. And I'm in a grumpy state. I still get grumpy. I have not grown beyond that yet. Now, the fun part is after I copped to it, it didn't take long for it to fall away. And then I did the rest of the show. But I truly, the piece of me that was terrified that if I let people know that about me, y'all tracking, was terrified if I let people know that about me, they would lose their respect. I'd lose my gig, da 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 da. Now, as it turned out, I got more responses from that show than I typically get from a show. A whole lot of people wrote in to acknowledge that, yeah, I understand grumpy. I get grumpy too. And God bless her. One person wrote in, and her brother had been a driver for the Dalai Lama somewhere on his tour in the States. And she checked in with her brother to say, does the Dalai Lama still get grumpy? And her brother said, yep, he just gets over it really fast. Cool. Score. And yet, the stuff that ran through the back of my mind that wanted me to be deceptive and hide my truth rather than cop to my truth. Well, in that case, in front of however many thousand people were listening to the show. But the thing we run into where we want to hide our truth from friends, from partners, from family members, rather than say it, is one of the psychological habits that has us make ourselves small, which is not humility. It's just make ourselves small. It's not humble. It's falseness. It's hiding ourselves. It's hiding our truth. And most of all, it's dialing down and turning down our inner light. Now, in my view, The whole reason we take on these earth suits, the whole reason we come in and be a spirit operating a meat puppet in a three-dimensional space, all right, be a multi-dimensional, beyond time and space spirit, locking itself into time and space to operate a meat puppet in a four-dimensional space, is literally, in my view, to be untangling those psychological energetic tangles that we took on as part of a larger whole. And the way we do that is by coming conscious in the midst of a moment when our buttons have gotten pushed and one of our limiting factors is activated. I'm not sure that sentence worked. Let me try that again. We came in to untangle a whole set of energy tangles, kind of like my favorite analogy is all the kids get gathered around the dining table, and mom brings out this huge baggie of tangled gold chains because grandma had a gold chain thing, great grandma had a gold chain thing, and she bought nice chains and costume chains. And whenever they got tangled or got a knot, she tossed them in the bag, and now they've all knotted to each other. Mom dumps this whole baggie of knotted gold chains in the middle of the table and says, "All right, everybody, take a handful, then those are your job to get the knots out of those chains until you've got all the chains unknotted and straight. Get out your needle and your cooking oil or whatever your approach is, but unknot all of the little knots in the chains and all the chains knotted together. Everybody take your share, and when we've got them all unknotted, we all get back together. We figure out what's of value, what's of not, and we give them up as our inheritance. There you go. Grab your handful." It says in Christian Bible Genesis that God looked out and saw no thing. Now it gets typoed into saying nothing. I read it as no thing, in that God being whatever it is, God being an aligned flow of energy that floats in whatever God floats in, comes across a pool of random God threads that are no thing. They're just a random pile of raw material. They are not yet a thing. Same way if I drive by a construction site and I see a pile of lumber, yeah, it's lumber, but it's not yet a house or a garage or an office or whatever it's going to be. And then God said, let that jumble of no thing be untangled into pure alignment, which is phrased in the Christian Bible, let there be light. Each of us sitting there at the table grabbed our handful of these tangled energy threads, and part of a community project, we took on the original off the markness, sin being a word for archery for off the mark. We took on our share of this original off the markness, original sin, our clump, and then we keep coming into match tempo and frequency with the clump until we can get the whole clump untangled. And once we've got it untangled, we've got it aligned, we've elevated the frequency. So we leave as a little fragment of God. We untangle this clump. So now we're a big fragment of aligned energy. Atonement at 1 minute, we become at one with God again, and God grows. Yeah, metaphysics in a very fast nutshell. But that's the reason we have these lessons, is we agreed this was our share of the tangles. And we agreed that we would keep working on them until we got our share of the tangles untangled. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. There's no guilt to that. There's no wrongness to that. There's no I got it right or I got it wrong to that. There can be the frustration that here I am pulling the knot out of this chain and I finally got one loop free and I think I've got it. And then I do one more pull over here and darn, I just tighten the whole knot up again. There is that frustration when we come into a lifetime and we tighten the knot back up rather than untangled it. And now we're going to have to start over on that aspect that we experience as a psychological aspect, an emotional aspect, a physiological shape, and an energetic form. Wow. I had no idea we were going to go. I'm always so surprised what happens when I'm in a Dottie gig, or in this case, a UCM gig. It's like, oh, yeah, it's sort of like where I usually float and teach from. UCM reaches up and goes, no, 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 we're teaching down here, baby. So there you go. Think fast, get what you get. And Janet made it. Hi, Janet. And so even the energetic patterns of I'm embarrassed about that, I'm shy about that, I don't dare let anybody know about that, I don't dare let anybody have any knowledge of that, I need to keep that covered up even with my loved ones, I need to pretend that I don't have what I think of as my smaller or lesser or baser emotions, I have to pretend that I don't have, my addiction to cookies that make it impossible for me to have cookies in my house and leave them alone, that I'm helpless in the face of cookies, I have to turn to my spiritual advice, you know, all of these pieces of us that we don't want to let be seen become aspects of our psychology that says we need to stay hidden. We are not as Marianne Williamson phrases it, we are not brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous. We need to stay hidden because if we got more well seen or more well known, or if people knew all the way into the side of us, then they'd know that we're not so advanced that we no longer get grumpy. Then they'd know that we're not in control of our sugar thing to the degree that we can have cookies in the house and leave them alone. Then they'd know that blah 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 blah. I mean, I find it funny that I consider myself as leading a somewhat public life. I confess to a whole lot of my weirdnesses, and I still know I have weirdnesses under the surfaces that, like, ooh, they can't know about that. Oh, I bet that came out weird auditory. I can't know about that. They can't go that way. Oh, no, no, no. If they ever saw that, then they wouldn't like me, choose me, approve of me, think of me, whatever. Then I would never be living up to the introduction that Dottie gave me. And how sad would that be? Big time. I like those introductions. I walk in thinking, oh, this guy's going to be good. And then I remember it's me. And then I have to live up to it. Breathe, please. Deep breath and let it out again. Right now, you can tell, if you look, you can tell we're working right between your heart and your solar plexus. Some of you will be feeling pressure right there where we're working. So this is you guys. We can pull this off, I'll bet. Yeah, what the heck? We're going to try it and see whether or not I can make it go. This is not a test of you. This is only a test of me to find out if I can pull this off. First, I want to bump the energy again. Again, some of you may notice these waves when I do them, and that's just a test of me. It's not a test of whether or not you're able to. It's a test of whether or not I'm able to present it in the way that you get it. We are these huge, spectacular, fabulously lit flows of brightly colored energy threads that radiate light and magnetize to the degree that we allow ourselves to magnetize, or magnetize to the degree that we tune ourselves down and end up magnetizing our stuff in the way to show up in patterns. I figure that I had a computer weirdness. I had to rework from that multiple steps. Shannon had a computer weirdness. She had to rework from that multiple steps. I have no idea what you guys went through to either get here or what everybody that didn't get here went through because they intended to be here and now they're going to remember it tomorrow. I'm figuring, in my own humbleness, that that was my nervousness about doing the event tonight. And it magnetized stuff all over the place to make this weird and interesting and throw me off balance. Or sometimes when I'm in a glorious mood, I figure that my innermost self threw all kinds of things to throw me off balance so that rather than presenting what my brain wanted to present, I would be presenting from my heart because my brain would be still weirded out over, stuff that went sideways. Either way, I like the second interpretation. It's my favorite. I love tracking positive beneficial synchronicities. I get a kick out of tracking weirdness, things went sideways in just the right moment at just the right time to make my focus and concentration different than I intended. I love tracking weirdness synchronicities, but I love tracking positive beneficial synchronicities. They are so fascinating to me that I track them, and I track them on purpose, and I try to pay attention to even the smallest ones that move me into a state of, oh my God, I love my life. I track them when clients synchronistically, after they've applied stuff that we've worked in, have amazing things pop open in their life from people that I had no control over. I love those. They're so much fun. But I also love it just when things just sort of fall together in a way that works, in a way that's fun and exciting. I ended up here now to experience this now, and this worked for me. This turned out well. This was fun. This was amazing. This was fascinating. Breathe, please. So I'm in favor of more obvious to me positively beneficial synchronicities in my world. I'm equally in favor of more obvious to you positive and beneficial synchronicities in your world. I mean, the world calls them coincidence, and they are incidents that come together, so they are coincident. They're just not random. So, in this next bit, I'm going to invite you to move into a very, very deep state of consciousness. In fact, I'm going to guide you to a very deep state of consciousness, which you can rebel against if you want to. But if you're going to sit there and intentionally like move a lot to rebel against it, don't be up on camera if you would for that moment. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know why you'd want to. So I'm going to invite you into a very, very deep state of consciousness, and I'm going to be energetically supporting you so that you're able to navigate possibly at a deeper state of consciousness than where you get on your own. Because we've got this whole group of us now. We've got me plus almost, plus like 30 of you guys out there, all focused in at the same time, depending on how many extra, at least 30, because we've got people that are with people, right? So we've got all of that energy to work with to support you into a deeper state of consciousness. What we're going to do is take our awareness back to an incipient moment. Incipient, when something came about, the inception point. We're going to take ourselves back to an incipient moment in time when your consciousness made a limiting decision that's been keeping you small. It's been keeping you small to be polite. It's been keeping you small because you decided that you made too big a move and it didn't turn out well. It's been keeping you small because somebody put you in charge of something once and that something went sideways. So therefore you wanted to make sure nobody ever put you in charge again. It's been keeping you small because that thought that would keep you safe. It's been keeping you small because it thought that was humble in the eyes of God. It's been keeping you small for whatever reason. And from whenever place and time, we're able to carry these dents. When that ball of energy gets dented, we're able to carry those dents forward from lifetime to lifetime because that's the lesson, that's the tangle we're working on, that's the approach we're taking. We're able to carry those dents forward. I just have to laugh about it. I've got my light set up weird, so every time I gesture, it's changing the color of my face. I don't know if it shows up there out there, but it's driving me crazy, and I'm really embarrassed about the fact that I have my Zoom room and my lights aren't set well. So there you have it. I'm embarrassed that I'm not a perfectionist, that I'm not perfect at lighting a Zoom set. Bummer. Okay, there we have it, right out front. Yep, brought it out. Now I can move on. It might have been so we carry forward that that's the approach, that's the lesson we're taking. I've got this perfectionism thing. We carry forward that's approach, and we carry it from lifetime to lifetime, which psychologically looks a lot like we may well carry an imprint, a place where we got dented by an event from one lifetime to the next, particularly if the event was, popular word now, pretty darn traumatic. So we may end up going back to a moment in time that was this lifetime. We may end up going back to a moment in time when we were somewhere else and someone else. It's not like that's the goal. Don't be thinking, oh man, I'm supposed to find a previous lifetime. Nope. You're not supposed to be in charge of this at all, other than willfully setting your mind toward what I guide you to, that inceptive moment. That's it. It may be this lifetime, it may be some other lifetime. You don't even have to be urgent about noticing whether where you go to was this lifetime or some other lifetime. You don't even need to notice. You may or may not notice. We just want that inceptive point. Because what we're going to is that point in time when you made a decision that's been a limitation on your permission to have an effect on your surroundings. Any of y'all that have ever been with a group of people that all got, they all went on break and they're trying to decide where to go to dinner. And you say, well, there's an Italian place up the street. There's Frankie, Johnny, and Luigi's too up the street. It's pretty good. And they keep talking and nobody heard you. And then 5 minutes later, somebody else says, well, I heard that there's Frankie, Johnny, and Luigi's too. It's a pretty good Italian place. Let's go there. And the whole group goes, oh yeah, let's go there. And you're wondering, wait a minute, and am I in that movie about ghosts that don't know they're ghosts? Why wasn't I heard? Yep, limiting factor. If you've ever had the place, if you've got a pattern in your world where people regularly take credit for your work, limiting factor. If you've got a pattern in your world where people regularly don't hear your suggestion, limiting factor. If you've got a pattern in your world where you regularly don't make the suggestion because you assume that if it was a good idea, somebody else would have, limiting factor. Right now, we don't care how it plays out. We just want to untangle it. Now, your mind will drift off during this exercise. When it drifts off, I'm pretty good about repeating where we are and what we're doing in the exercise. So when your mind drifts off, just come back, and this is my favorite thing, and just do what I tell you to. Yeah, how often does that ever work? But literally, if you notice your mind drifted off, it's not that you went to sleep, it's not that you missed it, it's that you went to a level that's deeper than where your conscious mind can retain, and now you've drifted back up to conscious mind level again. That's all it means. You're not losing it. I'm really good at keeping you here. Braggy, braggy. But I am. It's true. I don't know how I do it. It just turns out to be a knack. Okay. So if you drift off, as soon as you notice drifted off, don't worry with what I miss, what went on, where are we going. Just stay with us until I tell you the next instruction and then follow that. Just let go of the fact you drifted off and just stay with my voice. And I'll repeat the instruction or I'll give you the next instruction and then you'll know what to do. Yeah, I think that's probably the key element. Is just, follow along and do what you're told. Yeah, that works. Just stay with it and let yourself follow along. And when you notice your mind is arguing, just thank it very much and set it aside and come back to what we're doing. When you notice your mind is arguing, set it aside and come back to what you're doing. When you notice your mind is saying, I'm not doing this right, set it aside and come back to what you're doing. When you notice your mind is saying, I'm not going to have success with this, set it aside and come back to what we're doing. Because let's just all agree now. If you have fabulous results out of this, I'm claiming all the credit. It's mine. It's got nothing to do with you, your consciousness, your growth, your development. It's mine. If you have fabulous results out of this, I'm claiming all the credit right there. But at the same time, if you get no results out of this at all, well, that's my fault. I just didn't present it to you well enough. Now, the fun part is some of you are so keyed up to make sure that you don't make it my fault that you'll do an amazing job with the exercise just so you won't have to have made it my fault. I love that. I love psychology. It's so fun. Great. So with all of that goofing off and with me being nervous enough to have stalled that long trying to think of other things to tell you, we're going to go in and do this exercise now. So I'm going to suggest A, get yourself comfortable. Probably best if you get yourself comfortable in a way where you're not going to immediately nod off into actual sleep, but just get yourself comfortable. Just agree that you're going to give yourself permission to successfully enact this entire exercise toward whatever it's going to do, and that you give yourself permission to release any limiting factor, any limiting decisions, just for the sheer fun of finding out what happens next. Just for the sheer fun of finding out what happens next. Breathe, please. Deep breath and let it out. And you'll probably find it easiest if you just let your eyes go closed. And just drawing in a long, deep breath till your lungs are full, and let that air flow out again. And as you're ready for another breath, let it be a long, deep breath. And this time, as you let that air out, imagine it flowing out through your body as if your body were layers of silk or fabric. And with each breath, just let the air flow in and let it flow out through your body, feeling your body open and expand. And in your imagination now, I'd like you to imagine that you have a beam of energy. I'd like you to imagine that you have a beam of energy from the center of the earth, right up through the earth beneath you, straight up through your body, just in front of your spine, and then all the way up and into an overhead cloud that I'll call source. And just willfully increase the flow of energy from the center of the earth right up that beam deep inside your body, out the top of your head, geysering, fountaining that energy in that overhead cloud I'm calling source. And increase the flow up that beam, richer, denser, faster, brighter, to allow it to create a glow from deep inside of you, glowing out through you and glowing out through everyone and everything around you. And on the next breath, willfully increase the flow of energy up that beam, geysering that energy, fountaining that energy into that source cloud, and expanding your glow and feeling yourself aware. Now move your focus bring your focus now inside that energy beam. Just let yourself release the focus in your body and move your focus inside that energy beam, maintaining where you are with your focus, but feeling all of that upflow of energy flowing right past you. And now take that awareness and gently imagine that you're moving it up along that energy beam until your awareness is, I don't know, 3, 4, 6 feet. Let's make it 6 feet over the top of your head. Move your awareness up so that your awareness is now above your body. If you focused downward, you could focus down and imagine seeing your body in whatever chair or configuration it's in. And you can imagine seeing that beam of energy now. From this place, it's easier to see the energy flows. And you could see that beam of energy flowing up from the center of the earth. And if you look upward, you could see it flowing all the way up and into that cloud of source, lighting up and creating an energy flow into source. Willfully maintaining your awareness floating above your body, the next thing I'd like you to notice is from here, looking down a little bit, you can actually see the energy pattern, the energy pathway that has been your life path. You can see, perceive, feel, sense, excuse me. You can be aware of that flow of energy that's been your life path. And you can even see that flow of energy that moves to be your future life path. You can even see that flow of energy that moves to be your future life path. And with that awareness, bringing your focus back to yourself, bringing your focus back to your awareness, recalling yourself floating above where the body's hanging out. Focus along your life path in whichever direction is your history. Don't know what your orientation will be, but focus along your life path in whichever direction is your history. And gathering your will, gathering your determination, gathering your sense of desire, build in yourself a sense of desire that you desire to be swept along above your life path in the direction of your history, that you desire to be magnetized and drawn by your desire to the moment in time when you made the inceptive, limiting decision about you, your worth, your value, your presence, and the amount of light you're allowed to shine. Focusing your will and focusing your desire, feel yourself desiring toward, being drawn toward, drawing yourself toward that moment in history, that moment in a much earlier time when you made an initial decision or you had an initial traumatic moment that made you decide to keep your light smaller, keep yourself smaller, to play on a smaller stage. And imagine that you're above that timeline and you're above that moment in history. You may find that you're above a moment in history, but if you really tune in on your desire to be at the inceptive moment about decisions to make yourself small, you may find that that swooshes you back to an even earlier point in time. Skip looking for the details. Just really be aware of yourself there above that moment in time, when from above you can actually get a sense of something urgent, traumatic, upsetting happened, and that you in that time crunched in and decided that your best solution to never have that happen again is to stay small. Now, what I'd like you to do is willfully move 2 days earlier, still above that timeline, move 2 days earlier than that event. So you're now floating above your body in that place and time 2 days earlier than when you had that traumatic experience that made that hard decision. So you're now floating above a you that never had that experience yet and never made that decision yet. From that point, 2 days before that inceptive decision, or if for some reason it was a slow building trauma, maybe even a little further, but basically 2 days before that inceptive decision, Now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to move your awareness down inside the you that has not yet had that urgency or that decision. Move your awareness down inside that 2 days before you. Move your awareness now down to inside that 2 days before you, that you 2 days before the trauma. Move yourself into that free you. Skip the details, just skip them. We don't need to know. But what I want you to do is imagine being in that you before that limiting decision. I want you to imagine you being in that you before that limiting decision. Notice how free it feels. Notice where it feels open. Notice where it feels flexible. Notice where it feels movable. Notice where it feels notice where it feels weird because you're not tense in that place. Allow yourself to expand into this 2 days before you. Expand into it. Feel it. Let yourself experience it. Now stay with that you, and we're going to roll time forward quickly, and you're still inside that you. We're going to roll time forward to 1 day before that startling event that made those limiting decisions. We're going to roll you forward to 1 day before that startling event. And still in you, feel how free that is. Feel how open that is. Really explore as if you were moving that body around, as if you were feeling the freedom of movement, the freedom of thought, the lightness of thought, the lightness of you. You may be accidentally noticing some of the details to either notice whether it's this life, how old you were, or whether it's a previous life, how old you were. We're not really concerned with those. Stay in that you, and now roll it forward to an hour before this startling event that locked down these limiting decisions. Still in you, still before you had that experience, still being that you. Really feel that energetic of the you. And roll it forward to now 10 minutes before that startling event. Still you, wide open. Now, very gently allowing you to be in your body, but with your perspective, riding along with the perspective you had then. We want the you here now with my voice perspective, and roll it forward through the startling event. Skip the details, but notice the piece of you, the part of you that wants to clench down based on that startling event. And instead, give yourself the encouragement to recognize that that startling event, whatever it was, details not important, was just a startling event. And that you can still be you with your light lit up, and roll it forward to an hour after that startling event while you're sustaining the expanded free you that you had before the event. You're holding that shape in your body for the you then perspective to release and match to that free state rather than the clench it was going for. And as you do that, imagine connecting that beam of energy from the center of the earth up through the you then there, right on up into source, lighting you up inside your body. And with that, popping out the dent or the imprint or the clench or the enclosing decision, popping that outward out of the body, flowing that energy through you, lighting you up and letting it pop out, that imprint, that dent, that impression. Pop it out of you. The you there then may be still trying to argue in its brain of, no, 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 I need to keep on to that, keep holding on to that hurt, that wound, that whatever, so I won't do it again. But you're not going to do it again. You already know that about life. It doesn't need to replicate if you're not carrying the energetic pattern. And the solution to our lessons is not figuring them out, it's popping out the energy pattern. Pop out that compressed and tangled energy, pop it out of the body. And now moving out of the body, take with you that compressed, that impressed, that dented energy pattern. Take that dented energy pattern with you up and above the body so that the you there then can be moving back in its state of freedom, having experienced some startling and getting a good real outcome from it. Well, you lift that clenched energy, you lift that bent energetic pattern, and now just dissolve it there above the body. Dissolve that bent energy pattern, and then just absorb it back into you, integrating it instantly so that you have that piece of your energy back again. That piece of your energy that got stuck in that twist in that NOT knot, that was a KNOT knot, you've untangled it. You have that energy back, integrate it. Now, Gently move forward along the timeline to the next point where that limiting decision replicated. And from here, you can just tap you on the head from above in that next moment of replication and zing free that replicated energy pattern, let it float up, and you absorb it and integrate it. Move forward to the next time that that decision was reenacted, tap you on the head, free that energy up, move forward to move right into it and absorb it and integrate it. And now you can start moving more quickly, moving from point to point to point in your whole timeline, whether it was this lifetime or even longer, from point to point to point of every time that decision was replicated and replayed, to tap it free because you now have unhooked the inception of the grip. You can simply tap that freed energy free, let it float up. You move forward and merge with it and soak it into you, integrating it instantly. And now move along above that timeline from point to point to point. Every time that decision was replayed, was reenacted, popping that energy free and regaining that twisted, knotted energy back into you. And I want you to move along that timeline, tapping all of these replications free as fast as you possibly can, tap them free and integrate. Tap them free, move in, soak them in, and integrate. Tap them free, move in, soak them in, and integrate. Moving along above the timeline from replication to replication to replication, from reenactment to reenactment to reenactment of that original locked up energy, recognizing it no longer has anything to lock to, so that you can bump it free and have it float up and you move forward, absorb it, integrating it instantly, moving even more quickly now. Moving from point to point to point every time it was replicated, breaking that, popping that energy free, absorbing it, bringing it straight and true, refilling you with energy, feeling the aliveness in you gathering and gaining as you reintegrate all of these energy moments that have been stuck in history from old surprises, from old lockdowns, from old decisions that were made by a much earlier you based on much lesser strategies than what you now possess. Moving forward above that timeline, moving even faster now, coming closer and closer to the timeline point of the you here now that's hearing my words, staying above the timeline, popping free these old twisted energy patterns, popping them immediately clear and simply absorbing that neutral energy into you, feeling yourself gaining lightness and brightness even as you go until you're just before the you here now with my voice. In fact, I want you to move really quickly now, popping the last several of those free now that you're good at it, reabsorbing all of that energy until you imagine yourself floating directly above the you here now that's listening to my voice. Bring your focus back to my voice and imagine yourself floating directly above the you here now that's listening to my voice and looking forward along your future timeline. Bringing your focus back to my words and imagine yourself floating above the you here now that's hearing my voice and looking forward along your future timeline, looking out, say, about 6 months where you're seeing that future timeline. Just observe that the fact that you've regathered and reintegrated all of this energy that was stuck in your past, that you've reintegrated it fully into you to drop that pattern of limitation but shine brightly. Notice as you look out toward your future path that it's becoming increasingly bright. In fact, look out to a point about 6 months from now where you just notice someplace 5, 4, 6 months, you notice someplace where you're particularly shining brightly and staying above the timeline, bringing your focus back to my words, staying above the timeline, float right on out now to a point about 5, 6 months from in the future where you're shining particularly bright. Skip looking at the details, but let your awareness drop into that 6 month in the future you and notice how expansive it is. Notice how lit up it is now that it's had 6 months of integrating all of this recovered energy that was stuck in your past, that was limiting you. It's had 6 months of experiencing yourself without that dent that was shaping and limiting your light. Just feel how expanded that feels. Feel how lit up you can feel. Feel how brightly shining you can feel. Feel how your emotional heart just sings with the beneficial synchronicities and coincidences that you've been experiencing. Feeling how your heart sings with the whole notion of, man, I can't wait to tell Scout about what happened. This is magic. Feel your heart sing and match yourself to that energy state 6 months out in the future. And bringing your focus back to my words, lift your awareness above that body 6 months in the future, looking still toward your future. And just notice how your future continues to expand brighter and brighter and brighter as more and more of that limited energy releases and flows. And as you unfold more of you, open and freely willing to be seen and to be brightly seen. Who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Absolutely, I am. And continuing with your focus toward future, but moving backward in time now, continuing with your focus toward future, moving backward in time now till you're directly above the body that's in the here now that's hearing my voice. Till you're directly above the body that's in the here now that's hearing my voice, and bring your awareness now down into that body that's in the here now that's hearing my voice, and expand that awareness out into this body. And notice where there were places where this body held containment and limitation habits, and simply expand. In fact, why would you want to wait 6 months to be that energetic state? Everything is energetic. Dial up the energy in your body as bright as what you just experienced is 6 months into your future, which will change your future, and that's fine. Dial up that energetic pattern. Feel it all the way out to your fingers and your forearms and your upper arms and your shoulders. Feel it all the way out to your toes and your ankles and calves, knees, thighs, hips. Feel it all the way into your abdomen. Feel it all the way into your heart. Feel it all the way up your neck. Feel it all the way to your eyes where they connect to your brains, the ears where they connect to your brains, your sense of taste as it connects to your brain, sense of touch as it connects to your brain. There you go. And dial up your whole body and let this energy pattern reshape your body as opposed to your body reshaping you to your old habit. Let it reshape your body. In fact, set your awareness now that the next time you sleep, this dialed up energy pattern that used to be 6 months in the future is now present. That every time you sleep, this dialed up energy pattern will be permeating every cell in your body, letting every cell in your body relax and hydrate and gently cleanse, dialing up every cell in your body to this level of frequency, this level of energy, this level of freedom, this level of aliveness, this level of sheer desire. Aliveness, enthusiasm, desire, that energetic you were going for. Set your desire that that energetic pattern is reshaping your thought processes, is reshaping your magnetic processes, is reshaping the energy flowing in your body, and is building up to be more and more and more magnetically drawing toward you circumstances and people that match that innermost essence energy pattern, and drawing you toward circumstances and people that match that innermost energy pattern, and shaping your surroundings, magnetizing your surroundings into alignment with that core essence of you. And having willfully made that decision now about next time you sleep, let's bring every part of you, muscle tissue, sinew, flesh, bone marrow. Let's bring every level of you, conscious, near conscious, subconscious, deep conscious, unconscious mind, into alignment that every time you sleep, it will be reinforcing you moving toward that elevated energy state, reinforcing you popping out dents and impressions that were limiting you, and becoming more and more and more aware of your vibrant aliveness and watching it reflected in your coincidental surroundings. Having made that willful decision now with every part of you in alignment with that willful choice now, if you were listening to this as a recording, then now would be the time for you to drop into a deep, deep, rest-filled sleep. Sleeping at this elevated energy state and activating that decision, that choice of elevating your aliveness in your deepest sleep, staying in your deepest sleep state, doubling or even tripling the amount of deep sleep in every sleep cycle, and aligning your sleep cycle so that at the time you plan to awaken, you're rising naturally from the completion of your final sleep cycle, rising awake, refreshed, recharged, and energized with every step you take, reinforcing that flood of energy from the center of the planet up through you to source, lighting up your energy and allowing it to glow through everything around you. And if you were practicing this exercise and planning to rejoin your day at the end of it, then now would be the time to willfully reinforce that choice and recognize that you are indeed reinforcing that choice of lighting you up every time you sleep. Of every time you sleep, you'll drop into that deep healing, deep sleep mode, resting deeply and restfully right on through to the time you plan to awaken, and recognizing that you were participating in this exercise now, and you were planning to rejoin your day now at the end of it, then now would be the time to give your body a really big breath. Just letting it stretch your neck and shoulders all the way to the palms of your hand and the arch of your feet, and giving your body another really big breath. Letting that bring your eyes back open and bringing you right on back into the room. Welcome back. Just to reinforce that, allowing yourself to give your body a big breath. And just let it out, just letting it stretch your neck and shoulders all the way to the palms of your hands and the arch of your feet. With your next breath, let it be a big breath. And just let it bring your eyes back open and bring you right on back into the room. Welcome back. There's a permission factor deep inside of us that we can willfully recognize and choose, that we're willing to let that deep light inside of us glow out through us, but glow out right through everything around us, even if the things around us happen to be baby ducks, dogs, cats, or people, or statues or art form. I don't care. Walls, floors, chairs, ceilings. That we can willfully decide that we're willing to let our light shine right through everyone and everything around us. And that it's legitimate for us to allow our light to shine through everything around us, magnetizing the things around us into alignment with our core essence, because that's who we really are, and to allow that to be a benefit to us. See, we have a tendency to get educated into a belief system. We have a tendency to get educated into a belief system of thinking that the world is like chocolate cake. I had one brother growing up, and both of us were educated to be engineers. And so I was very, very aware that if we got down to where, and my mom was a lovely baker, there was always fresh baked goods, which somehow I survived as a kid. Back then, I could actually have cookies around, but not anymore. But I was very aware that if we got down to where there was one hunk of cake left, if my brother got more of that hunk, that meant I got less of that hunk of cake. And, that led to, as we grew older, that led to arguments and debates that my parents didn't want to solve anymore. And so my dad finally instituted, great, here's how it goes. One boy cuts, but the other boy chooses first. And I was able to negotiate that younger and less muscle controlled, that it had to be the older brother that cut. I got to choose first. And my older brother Roger would be almost down to getting out scientific micrometers to make sure that there was not going to be one crumb more in either piece so that I wouldn't get more and he wouldn't get less. And so we tend to think of the world like a chocolate cake. We tend to think of the economy of things like a chocolate cake. So it becomes interesting to notice that, sorry for all the political connotations you may attach to this, but it becomes interesting to notice that the family of Bill Gates and the family of, oh my gosh, how fun, the founders of Apple, whose names just Steve Jobs, that the family of Bill Gates and the family of Steve Jobs came to be in control of a tremendous amount of money. But isn't it interesting to notice that the same thing that put Bill Gates' family in control of a tremendous amount of money, the same thing that put Steve Jobs' family in control of a tremendous amount of money, created a huge percentage of the jobs that generate income for people all over the world. Some of y'all aren't old enough to remember, but there was a point in time when your house didn't have a computer in it. There was a point in time when your house didn't have a broadband connection to the internet. There was a point in time when you didn't have a computer and a camera and an amazing access to all the information in the world that you could carry around in your pocket. There was a point in time when nobody had ever played or made any money from inventing Candy Crush. Breathe, please. It turns out that when personal computers when going into space forced us to invent integrated circuits, and integrated circuits allowed us to move forward and invent computers, and computers allowed us to invent Candy Crush. It turned out that there is a huge amount of money that didn't exist on the planet before that. I will tell you that when I've done manifestation workshops in person, sorry you don't get to see this, it can be hard to replicate. I would do an exercise where we would do a 3 minute economy, and the 3 minute economy went this way. I handed out a bunch of actual physical $2 bills, and everybody got a $2 bill. And the game was played that every time they received a compliment, they gave a $2 bill, and they were supposed to count how many $2 bills flowed through their hands. So let's say we had a room of 30. So we've got 30 $2 bills in our initial economy. Well, by the time somebody received a compliment and gave a $2 bill, they now had given away a $2 bill. And yet there were still $32 bills in the room, but $32 bills have been given away. But by the time another person received a compliment and gave it away, $62 bills have been given away. And by the time another person received a compliment and gave it away, $92 bills have been given away. Our normal factor in 3 minutes, if we started with an economy of $32 bills, 30 $2 bills, our normal factor in a 3 minute economy, and it was fun to watch everybody's stuff get in the way, but a normal factor in our three minute economy was if we started with 30, I expected by the time we finished, people had given away 300 and something $2 bills. And we still had 30 $2 bills in the room. Breathe, please. So we had created an economy that existed with service rendered, compliment, payment delivered, $2 bill, that had rendered 10 times the flow of what we actually had started with in the room. That's not a chocolate cake that if I cut the piece in two, if I get more, you get less. That's the more I participated, the more there was in the flow, the more there was available. We do not live in a chocolate cake economy universe. Breathe, please. Granted, people that take control of money and then use it to control it, to not allow it to flow, they change the flow of the economy. Not going there. I just really want you to get that. If you give your essence permission to have more, that does not mean that you just selfishly made it so that somebody else has to have less. Quick thought exercise, just for fun. Just for fun. Let's suppose that tomorrow you bought a scratch off lotto ticket and you won, I don't know, let's just make a fun number. You won $50,000. You suddenly had 50 grand that was not really scheduled or planned in your life. Maybe all you do is take it to the bank and put it in the bank. But now the bank's got leverage that they can loan against that 50 grand. So other people can get loans because you put your 50 grand there. But let's suppose that you decide that this is luxury money, that you've got 50 grand that you don't need to set aside toward your future. You've got 50 grand that's discretionary money. Who else would do better in the world because you had 50 grand? I like restaurants. There would be restaurants that would see me and they would now have part of my 50 grand because I had 50 grand. They would sell another dinner, which would give them more money that they would pay their people, which would give them more money where they would buy what they needed, blah, blah, blah. Good chance a travel agent or an airplane company might have some extra money because I had extra money that I spent it with them. Really good chance that there would be photography prints that I would purchase and have available that now I would have them that people could buy the print and the company that made the print had the money to continue it onward. You get it? If you had more, there's a long list of others that would end up with more. Breathe, please. Really take that in. We do not live in a my brother and me dividing a piece of chocolate cake global flow of wealth. We do not live in a limited flow of aliveness and brightness and shininess. We do not live in a limited flow of how much light we can flow. I can tell you that when guidance drops me into trance and does trance teaching, even when guidance is flowing energy through me to heal a client, whether we're healing psychology or physiology, There's a huge amount of flow that flows through me, which does not mean that tomorrow I can flow less. And it doesn't mean that tomorrow guidance has less they can flow. It doesn't mean that tomorrow the universe has less it can flow. It actually means that I got more flow, the client got more flow, the client will be doing better. They'll bring more flow and more aliveness out in others. Breathe, please. I really want you to hear, if you shine more brightly, it does not take away any of the shine for anybody else. If you shine more brightly, a guy I studied with named Leonard Orr developed a process called rebirthing. And Leonard described the development of it that he accidentally rebirthed himself doing something else, but that once he had done that, if he was in the room and he taught people the breathing pattern, they would spontaneously go into releasing birth trauma on purpose. It's not like he did it everywhere. But then he found that if he trained people all the way through releasing their birth trauma, if they were in the room and they had other people doing the pattern that made it release, the fact that they had experienced it and that they were free and that they were alive would trigger the freedom and the awareness in the people in the room to do their own release of birth trauma. In borrowing again from Marianne Williamson, one of her quotes is, as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I find that to be true. My session work, my client work, my workshop work, my presentations, my radio shows, they wouldn't be continued. The radio show actually got recognized as the longest running major market personal growth radio program in the nation, which means that I happen to broadcast it in a major market and I've been doing it for a really long time and it has sustained. If my expanding my light did not allow others to notice freedom to have their light, it wouldn't matter much what I said in sessions. I talk a lot in my sessions. I'm really proud of my words and my cleverness and the things I figure out. And yet, in a lot of cases, the most potent moment in session work are what I thought were random examples, random metaphors, random analogies that I pop out. And it turns out the analogy told the client way more than my last 1,000 words did because we're sustaining an energy state. Every one of us that brightens ourselves up brighter, breathe please, deep breath, let it out. Every one of us that brightens ourselves brighter gives every one of us around us permission to either step out of their shadow parts, their stuff in the way, or step more squarely into their shadow parts, their stuff in the way, in order to be able to perceive it finally and move forward out of it. You have permission to thrive. If you need it from somebody, great, you got it from me. You have permission to thrive because I'll take all the credit and I'll look really good out of it. So you can thrive for me. You can go thrive on purpose as a favor to me because I'll take all the credit and I'll look really good out of that. Get it? If you've got a pattern that says you can't do it for you, great, do it for me. Come on, honey, do it for me. You have permission to thrive as brightly as any human being ever has on the planet, certainly to the maximum brightness that you have. You have permission to pop out all of those impressions and dents that have held you limited. You have permission to expand your energy so significantly that it pops out those dents and even pops out the accumulated sediment that have gathered from the replications of that dent. You don't need them. You have successfully learned everything there was for you to learn from those prior events in your life. Now, I grant you, you may not have learned everything somebody else might have learned. You may not have even learned the same thing somebody else might have learned, but you have indeed successfully learned everything there was for you to learn from those prior events in your life. You are fully permissioned to release those prior events in your life because you're able now to interact with your life based on the depth of your experience and your experience in the moment. We are magnetic creatures interacting with a four-dimensional planet through a four-dimensional meat puppet. But if you've ever had a period of life where everything went crunchy. If you've ever had a period of life where you got to the place of, yep, I finally got to the front of the line, and just as they were going to ring up my groceries, the cash register ran out of the printer paper in it. It can't run, and they're brand new, but they've decided that this is the first time they're going to solo replacing the paper. They're not going to ask for help. They're going to keep fiddling with it till they get it figured out. And I'm in a place where I'm going, oh, yeah, that's how my world's been going lately. That figures. If you've ever been in a place where things went sideways so repetitively that you were in the mode of, yep, that figures. That's how it's been going for me this week. That figures that this week would be the week this happened. This week would be the week that happened. That figures. If you've ever been in that place where stuff was going funky to such a degree that you had a severe case of that figures, then you know that this is not a fixed, solid, predictable statistical reality. Because the statistics against having a whole bunch of stuff go sideways in a row are huge. If you've ever noticed that, that's my pattern at the moment, everything's going grunchy, then you know that you are magnetizing and affecting your surroundings, just not inside your conscious choice, just not inside your conscious will. Well, flip side of the coin is I notice it's harder for me to get to a state of, oh yeah, that figures when everything's going groovy. It's more like, holy cow, another one. Holy cow, another one. Holy cow, another one. I don't always get to a, yeah, well, that figures. Everything in my life falls together. Of course, that was another wonderful moment. I don't always get there, but it's okay. If you've ever had that moment in life where stuff was falling together, where you were in sync, you were in the flow, you were right in the motion of it, then you know that this is not a fixed, solid, statistically predictable universe. It's magnetics. And you be the magnet, kiddo. And you can choose that every time you are dialing up your aliveness, every time you're dialing up your life force, every time you're dialing up your joy, every time you are, to borrow a phrase, returning to love within yourself. I view love as being the sensation we experience when our energy and our aliveness is flowing in us. So every time that you're returning to that state of your energy and your aliveness flowing in you, allowing yourself to shine brightly out through everything around you, allowing you to confidently, fully walk, glowing brightly from inside of yourself and moving intentionally into a state of joy with life. So that you build a, what the heck, let me stay in a state of joy and let it be a wow, everything just went really groovy. That figures. My dear friends in LA, we travel a lot and they refer to it as Scouts Warp. They've dialed it up now to where it's not so obvious, but they refer to it as my warp because when they were traveling, I had no way to know. I just thought that's how it worked. But when we would be traveling together, they would notice that weird little synchronistic things would happen that would just be way fun. Like we would be at a restaurant for a first time and the chef would have just decided to come wandering out and he would wander to our table and chat with us and find them so engaging because they're delightful people that all of a sudden he would disappear in the kitchen and come back with something he was experimenting with and he would give us samples of two, three, four different five things that he'd been experimenting with that he didn't know if people would like them. And then he would remember them when they came back and they'd always get to sample stuff. I love that sort of stuff. That's so much fun. I love it when I walk up to the register in the store and by the time they're ringing up my purchases, I look behind and 12 people have lined up behind me that I got there the moment before the line happened. I love that kind of synchronicity. I love being in the flow like that. Whole dance of things like that that flow like that. I love that stuff. I thrive on it. I think about it a lot. When I find my mind going, and then this went crunchy, and then that went crunchy, I'd rather interrupt that and go, and then this went cool, and that went cool, and then this went fabulously, and that went fabulously. I love that stuff. It's my fave. I sort of take it as, oh, look, I'm in sync. But the key part is that we're allowed to dial up. Breathe, please. Deep breath. Let it out again. We're allowed to dial up our aliveness, our energy inside of us, to let it shine out from inside of us brightly. And then we're allowed to be quiet while we shine brightly. Doesn't mean we have to chatter and talk to everybody. We're allowed to chatter and talk to everybody while we shine brightly. We're allowed to have people magnetized toward that brightness. And at the same time, we get to choose whether or not they get to have our time and our attention. We don't have to give ourselves away to them. We can dial it up so that our practice in our relationships, whether it's parents, loved one, kids, workplace, that our practice is to dial up our aliveness and let ourselves shine brightly. There was a point in time a whole lot of years ago when I got hired to do some consulting work for a small startup computer software firm in Dallas, Texas. And I stepped into a pretty horrific situation, all the way up to my life being threatened. It's the shortest version I've been able to tell of this story. But I stepped into a pretty horrific situation of people screaming at me, people blaming me for stuff that was actually their fault, people screaming at me that I wasn't doing my job right within the company, within the customer base, and all the way up to one of the people in the customer base threatened my life. Not figuratively. I was in Texas. When he said, I've got my kid's Louisville Slugger under the seat of my truck and I know where you work. Yeah, life threatening. And in a tizzy of this horrible, horrible place that I felt stuck in because I needed the money because I'd been starving, I had a breakthrough of I am a spiritual being no matter where I am and no matter what I'm doing, not just when I'm meditating, not just when I'm focusing, not when I'm doing spiritual practices. I'm a spiritual being no matter where I am and no matter what I'm doing, including in a fluorescent orange padded wall cubicle. And then I started a practice out of terror. I started a practice that crossed my mind of doing this vertical beam, speeded up till I glowed. And I did it with I just got my life threatened level of urgency, which gave me permission to glow my energy like crazy. And I said it that I was glowing through the company and all of the company's customers. Every time the phone rang, every time anybody yelled at me, which they went together a lot, every time anybody in the company yelled at me, anytime I found I was grumping, every time I was thinking they didn't appreciate me enough, and every time I was unhappy about the hours I was working, which was pretty much all the time. Pull that beam, glow, do what I'm doing. 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 I didn't think about permission because I was life and death threatened. I was terrified. I just wanted to survive and be able to keep making enough money that let me actually have food. This is all literal. Shortest version I can tell you is I was single and living in Dallas, Texas, and working a ridiculous amount of hours. Within a short time frame after that, I got featured on a radio show. I got invited to be on the radio show by phone to tell jokes on that show every morning. They featured the fact that I was running my first 10K. So in this 10K on my birthday, I had people running by me in a town where I hadn't known anybody, hadn't been able to make any friends. People were running by me on the 10K, yelling at me happy birthday because they'd heard me on the air. I ended up dating the female half of the DJ team in a town where I hadn't been able to get anybody to go out with me. I dated the female half of the hottest of the DJ team that was the hottest rock and roll show in Dallas. The people that were my biggest problem in the company all got excited about a new direction to go that looked a lot like part of what I was doing. One of them decided self-employed looked good on me, so they went to go be that. The other decided that being in charge of the sales and marketing looked good, so they went to go do that. The people that were the biggest problem in the company all found exciting things to do. They elevated their perspective and they laughed. And the one to be self-employed took my 5 most difficult customers with him when he left. The company reoriented until it was in a place where nobody was yelling at me. The customers actually thought I was the hero because instead of yelling at me, they made the problems in the software into a game. And I was, according to them, the one keeping score of who found the problems and who found the workarounds first. And I can never tell the whole story because nobody would believe me. My whole world rotated around me at a place that because I was in such a miserable state in such an urgent place, I got to watch it do that. And then I got to recognize because I was at life or death, I had dropped off the parts of me that thought I should contain myself small and only affect my own world. And I let me be a whole and full energetic presence. Between then and now, I went from so starving, so broke that I couldn't find a job to I haven't actually had a job since then. I went from so starving and so broke that I didn't have enough food, I didn't have enough money for food to, all right, I'll say it out loud. I live in a house that's fully paid off. There's no mortgage on my house now. I don't own 37 real estate properties, which other people might have been able to manifest between then and now, but at least I know that my rent's not going up. Breathe, please. Sorry, that really threw people off. Sorry. Okay, there we go. And I continue to draw a practice of people that notice and recognize things changing in their world when we interact, to the degree that they find that to be a really worthy exchange to continue to pay for my groceries and my gasoline, and my property taxes and whatever else I use money for, and to actually be accumulating money beyond what I ever did earlier in my life. Breathe, please. But it ain't about me. We could talk about the Dalai Lama pulling this stuff off. Boy, that was close. We could talk about the Dalai Lama pulling this stuff off, and I would agree with you that that's a very special multi-experiential, memoried human being that does stuff that I can't, that we don't expect us to be able to do. We could talk about any of the masters pulling stuff off, and we could easily recognize that they pulled off stuff that we don't actually expect. Low and mere and lowly little us is going to like have dead people get up and walk again or whatever else. But in that moment, life or death, gave me permission to set my light loose. And I have wandered since then. I have had to work since then. I've had to notice that I fell back into old habits since then and then kick them brighter. I grant you permission to have your life fall into amazingly beautiful things that beyond what you used to limit yourself, to have your conversation, to have your speech, to have your expression, to have your resume, to have your presentation in your workplace fall into amazing things, and then do it just so that I'll look good. If you need to have done it for it was I had a client years ago, and one of the things she wanted me to do, she said, I have this blockage about cleaning my house. I'd like to live in a clean house, but every time I go to clean my house, I find that I get distracted and I do something else. Please remove that blockage. And I took a look and I noticed that she was pretty diligent about tidying up when she was going to have people over. Being an engineer, I did the math and I figured it out that if she had people over 3 times a week, the tidying up would gradually expand until the whole house was tidied up. So rather than go after a blockage that she didn't know how to go past, I went with what she already did. Great. Here's your sentence. You have to have people over 3 times a week. And I heard back, and it was like, Scout, I want to no. Great. Go with what it is you're good at already. Go with what it is where you flow already. And I did hear back from her, and she said, it was hysterical, Scout. You were so right. I had company coming over, and I found myself in the back corner of my closet, straightening up the back corner of my closet because the entire rest of the house was neat, but I had people coming over, so I had to straighten something. And it literal. So I'm saying that if you need to do it for somebody, great. Go have your life pop free. Have yourself produce results that you just find amazing. Let yourself have those amazing results and do it for me so that I'll look good. I will. I'll be more than happy to look good out of that. You can brag me up to everybody. You can tell me I'll brag about your results to everybody. I will thrive on looking good.
That's opposite of mine. Do what I tell you and blame me if it doesn't work.
I love it.
Yeah. Bring yourself forward. Bring yourself forward. Take the permission to be a magnificent, honking big magnet. It's magnetizing your surroundings into alignment with who you are. I mean, you got to get it. The two people that left the company, one of them had been the office manager who'd been with the founders since they started in his garage. So I couldn't fire her. The other had been the head of his software group that had developed this software that unfortunately didn't work. They left. They left. The odd part was they left not because they were crushed and it was awful and they needed to get out of here. No, they found themselves inspired. The office manager had never done sales or marketing in her whole life, and yet she was so inspired by the notion that she could sure as heck do that better than I was doing it. That to prove me wrong, she snuck around. Nobody in the company knew she was doing it until she found another small company that brought her in to be their sales and marketing person. I did not track her to find out if she did a better job than I did, but she did that in my honor because she lit up in that energy pattern that I was magnetizing through that entire company. We had a customer that came in and volunteered his time. He was taking 3 days a week to work with the owner to really work all the way through the software that didn't work to make it work right. I didn't even know the guy, but I know that he came in once to work with the owner, and then he started thinking, I like this. This is really interesting stuff. I'm learning computer programming, and I'm able to teach you from what I know. And this way, I'm sort of like, I'll have to go work full time in tax season, but the rest of the year, let me just come in for 3 days a week and work with you. How cool is that? How inspiring is that? How coincidental is that? That they put it back together and nobody needed to call me up and threaten me with their kid's baseball bat anymore because the stuff worked and it moved forward and I moved forward and I got drawn back to California. It's an amazing adventure that sounds like I got to be making it up and I'm not. I got to get in clubs at the front of the line because I'm now dating this famous DJ. I got to go basketball games. I got to go to live basketball games and then do a report the next morning about the game on the air, which gave me radio experience, which when I came back to here, coincidentally, and somebody invited me to be on their radio show, coincidentally. When I came on the radio show, I was already used to being on the radio. I was used to the energy impact of a much larger audience than what we had in that show. And I was able to communicate from there. And I've been able to then carry it forward to where I'm the longest running major market personal growth radio program in the nation, probably in the world, but we can't verify that. And I don't trust the aliens enough to try and claim that I'm the longest running personal growth radio show in the universe because, somebody might get mad about that and I might get just zapped off the planet. Some little saucer, boom, I'm gone, and away we go, which would be fun in its own right. Breathe, please. Again, it's about magnetics. It's about allowing yourself to expand your energy field, not around the things around you, not up to the things around you and stop, but right through. Every single one of us is a radio station broadcast is a magnet broadcasting on our own individual frequency. You're allowed to have your energy pass right through everyone around you. It was fun. I scored tickets to a Barbra Streisand concert back in the days when we used to do these things. And I had seats that were just a few levels above floor seats. So it was a great view. I mean, I wasn't in the front 6 rows or anything, but it was a great view. And Barbara was amazing. And when she would sing, I found myself spun off into these fabulous dream states that sort of had to do with the song, but it was just her energy lifting me until I was higher than a kite. And then the producer, in order to give Barbara a break, because she's not young, but at the same time not have everybody go away and not come back for an hour, they did a thing where they brought out this other performer who was a mentalist, a magician pretending to read minds. And they brought him out and had him do a gig so that Barbara sat on stage but wasn't actually having to do anything for a little while. And it was fun to watch because this was in the hockey arena in San Jose. Barbara easily filled the hockey arena in behind, but this other guy filled about the first 35 rows of the floor seats energetically. And from where I sat, you could watch it. You could watch that everybody was spun in when he started, and then as Barbara let go and as he got the room, he was not quite yet ready for prime time. I mean, he was good enough to hold the first 35 rows, which is a pretty big audience, but you could watch that from where I sat, you could see the people on the floor seats up close and on the side seats that were relatively close were really still really involved in what he was doing. But you could watch the rest of the room. You could almost draw a line. You could watch the rest of the room starting to sort of quietly chat to each other, shift in their seats, look a little grumpy, get a little annoyed. And, afterwards, both the reviewer and people in the bathrooms and in the halls afterwards are going, God, I don't know why he brought that guy out. He was annoying. He didn't have enough juice to hold that entire arena, which I would love to have the opportunity to try. I really would. I've held some pretty big rooms, but nothing that big. That would be fun. But it's an energetic magnetism where Barbara, by whatever nature she has, expanded her energy through the whole room. This guy had limiting factors or lack of practice or didn't know about his energy awareness, couldn't hold a room. That room couldn't hold an arena. He probably holds a room perfectly fine, gauged on what he was doing. I suspect that my suspicion is that his manager is also friends with Barbara's manager, and they gave him a break to give him a big shot. that he probably has been working small casino in Vegas or something. Just a guess. I don't know. I never looked him up. Didn't need to know. But the energetics of it is that we're allowed to expand our energy out through the entire room. And then people will either match to it and go with it or not. I matched with Barbara's and went with Barbara's. But if I'm in front of somebody that's being a jerk, I'm going to stay in my own energy and observe. I'm only going to match to it if it's elevated beyond mine. I match to the Dalai Lama. Oh, heck yes. I match to Barbara Streisand. Oh, heck yes. Most concerts, if it's musicians I like, I will tend to follow and track with the energy they're broadcasting for their concert because it's lifting. That's why I'm there. But, other events I might go to where it's another speaker, or even if it's just a large room full of people, I'm going to be my energy with my energy glowing through everybody around me. And quite frankly, the people around me are going to tend to match toward me unless somebody's really holding the energy in the room. If I go into the grocery store and the checker behind the counter is grumpy when I get in line, they're not grumpy by the time I get there. Not because I did anything, not because of what I said, just because they're in that. Everybody tends to match, not the strongest. You need to hear this. Everybody tends to match the most consistently held energy in the room, which is why if you've got an office space and somebody's grumpy, you can get the whole office to match grumpy because grumpy is really consistent. But if you've got an office space and somebody's uplifted, you can end up with two people going to other jobs and the people coming in being in alignment and the company thriving. You could,
Okay,
perhaps.
Scout. Okay.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Scott. This is amazing.
Give yourself
Scout,
permission,
you are just
if you have to blame it on me. I'm being cute. It's time for me to hush. But give yourself permission, even if you have to do it for me. Go light yourself up, let your light shine through everything around you, and let yourself willfully allow the things around you to match to your core essence. Thanks, Janet. Sorry I ran over.
No, you're not running over at all. I'm just showing you your wonderful candle.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you can see it, my love.
Thank you.
But there it is. It's purple, but it has a bunch of other magical colors that represent you and your light and what you're teaching us about maintaining our light.
Be a magnet.
I can't thank you enough, for the gift of your wisdom and the gift of your generosity of spirit.
Treat yourselves as a loved one because you truly are. And then my favorite part is no matter where on earth you are, it's a perfect day to have a great day on your purpose, on purpose. Thanks, Janet. Thanks for letting me be here.
Oh, it's our honor, and thank you, Scott. Hey, Scout, you are amazing. You are amazing. And we just want to wrap you around with our love and appreciation for all that you do. And I want to invite everyone, please join us for our October speaking engagement, which will be Tim Morrow.
Yay!
So, Tim in October. And Scout, just wrap yourself around with this loving energy, and each and every one of you wrap yourself around.
That was awesome.
With this amazingly powerful energy infusion we just received, and that we can now magnetically give and receive and give and receive. It reminds me, Scout, of my saying, the infinity of giving and receiving. We amplify it, and you've expressed it in such a powerful and specific way. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Each and every one of you, be gentle with yourself and be good to yourself, and know that we are here at UCM for you and continue to create this amazing community. So, it's just a testimony that I'm here with Dottie and Corky, and we made it work, even though my, machinery wasn't working at my house. I came right down to theirs and got to be in the presence of all of you and of Scout. So we light this candle for you.
Yay!
Thank you.
It's a blessing.
Yay!
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Be gentle with yourselves.
Good night, everyone.
Sweet dreams.
Blessings to all, and thank you very much, Scout. I've enjoyed myself immensely, and I've got some inspiration, and which is always good. Always good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.